Let me welcome all of you to this very, very exciting edition of the Cutting Chai Stories. We are today joined by a leader who has experience in every industry that you can think of. He's someone who's a team player, believes in taking his team forward, believes in strategizing right and energizing all the way. What an absolute delight to have with us Mr. Shubhranshu Singh, Chief Marketing Officer at Tata Motors. Welcome, sir, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Isha. Thank you very much. Delighted to be here. Thank you for a very kind introduction. It reminds me of a joke I heard somewhere. When introductions like this are read out, you wish your mother would have heard it or your mother in law would have heard it because your mother in law would have liked to hear it and your mother would have actually believed it. But thank you very much, anyways.
Well, you started the show on such a fabulous note, adding that little bit of wit, humor, and that anecdote. And I'm sure that everybody around you, whether it's your family, friends, your team members, they're also very proud that you are a part of their circle. And I'm sure that our viewers will get a lot to learn from you. So let me deep dive and ask you right away, what were your foundation years like? Because, it's always said it has to be a solid start. So let me start by asking you what your early days at school or college were like.
Yes, it's actually a very interesting story. I grew up for the most part in small towns across Rajasthan. My father was an IS officer. He was in the Rajasthan cadre. My family comes from Rajasthan. But I never spent time in Jaipur pretty much through till middle school. Because my father was posted in various districts in different capacities. And so I spent places like Udaipur and Bhilwara and Jodhpur and so on. And many times, the transfers would happen in the middle of the academic season. So I was hopping from one school to the other. And it was to that extent, being an only child, also uh, tough on me in terms of adapting to a classroom full of people who I didn't know from before. But looking back at it, I think it gave me several things. So, one of them was just resilience and persistence. The other is the need to know people quickly, to assess a floor full of people, to see where you stand, and to try and consistently pick up things, skills, attitudes which make you more acceptable, more worthwhile, more, in a sense, adding value to the group. um, and many things I had to do on my own, which people learn to do in a school. So, for example, to pick up a sport or a musical instrument, or all of these things are usually best done in a continuum in the same environment. But because I was changing quite frequently, so till I got to class 9, I would have changed 6 schools, I think. And did not a large part of my schooling was, in a sense, homeschooling, and my mother in particular was very particular about the essence of knowledge and also the form of it. So a lot of reading. And back in the day, and I will now reveal my age, but I got a television set at home when I was in class 7 or 8, because that was the first time when my father became commissioner in Udaipur that we had a place where there was a Doordarshan tower and you could get a black and white TV set. So most of your learning was through books, or through sitting with others and learning from them. So I think that that itself is a very valuable thing to happen in life. And now cut to my son, who's now a 16-year-old, and I see the barrage of information that comes to him through electronic means. Turning a page seems just out of fashion, but I very much value that formative influence in my life. Other than that, it was a very happy childhood, carefree, somewhat privileged, I would say. I wish sometimes I had the story of struggles that people write in the first few chapters of their autobiography. I had no such luck. I had a relatively comfy, privileged existence. But I did, like I said, try to experiment widely. So from horse riding to shooting to classical music, I had a fairly curated experience and exposure to various things that make you, in a sense, fully educated. So, and my sensibilities are therefore small town India and Hindi India, because that's where my formative influences were. But it has stood me in great stead, because in most of the markets, it is expansion and going down to the mass construct. It is going down to the bottom tiers that becomes a challenge for urban marketeers. I had no such challenges facing me because I grew up there. So I look back at my childhood and my college days with great fondness, actually.
Well, and as we look back and hear from you about those very, very fond memories and the wonderful upbringing that you've had, which gave you, I would say, an edge above others because you're someone who can adapt to any situation today. So, if I was to ask you while you were growing up or during the early days of your career, who do you feel was a very strong role model for you or your friendly ear that you would head to for any professional advice?
You see, again, the India, I mean, I came of age in the 80s, right? So I'm born in 1974. Back in the day, no matter how privileged or affluent you were, unlike in the scenario today, you didn't fly off to exotic locations in Europe or elsewhere for holidays. So the two rationed holidays, the summer break and the winter break, were respectively with my paternal grandfather and my maternal grandfather, and their respective jobs were to discipline me and to spoil me, respectively. So in my dada's place, I was tutored very much into, the proper etiquette of things, what is important in life, how as a family we have maintained our position, what is advancement, and those were, in a sense, essentially statements about value and value system, and the importance of hard work, importance of knowledge, importance of right behaviors. And my nana, who was a very learned person, he was a professor. From him, I got a love of books and learning per se, and also, just appreciating the arts. He was, watching cinema, just having an exploration of the the other parts of life, in a sense, away from the hard road of duty. So I think that was the balance. My role model, in I mean, I guess it's not unusual for children to look up to both their parents, but my father was is a man of great probity, very disciplined. He was an IAS officer in Rajasthan, and the political environment, the roles that you discharge in a district setting can be very many, from a law and order situation to developmental work to. Since I grew up in that environment, I had a at his elbow, I had a first hand view of what that world was all about, and I saw the correctness and the discipline with which he went about his duties. But my emotional anchor, and the person who really made who I am today, is
Yeah.
mom, and I lost her very early, as a matter of fact. But she was very disciplined about how everything that you do must be to a method. And I much later got exposed to this concept of the Chinese tiger mom, etc. I don't think she was, in a sense, driven for financial success or driven for material success, but she was very conscious that there was a chance that I would get spoiled, being an only child and being from the family and the circumstances that I was in. So she was very cautiously guarded me against wasting time or being flippant, and kept me on the road to just determined effort, knowledge acquisition, hard work, frugality. These are great values to have no matter where on the planet you are. So I would say, if I had to pick one person, my mother was pretty much the person who shaped me, and the value system that I have today is from her. But otherwise, I have imbibed from both branches of my family.
Well, I'm sure she's sending blessings your way from heaven above, as we're sorry for your loss, but you remember her fondly. And today, as a parent of a teenage child, I'm sure it can't be easy, but how is it that you try and inculcate the right value system and things that you learned during the years that you were growing up in him?
Look, my belief is that there is an African proverb that a child is more the child of his times than the child of his father, right? So, uh, my son, unlike me, has stayed all his life in one school in Bombay. My wife was very concerned when in middle school his section got changed, and I was like, I went from school to school. You're worried about three kids have shifted from one section to the other. So I think his environment has been much more stable. He's a South Bombay kid, so he has grown up with much greater appreciation or admiration of material success than I had. He knows things like cost to company and net worth, which I probably didn't know till a few years ago. So the circumstances and the context is very different. But the family values essentially remain the same, which is that we are, in a sense, people who have advanced from good to better, and the journey to best is still on. That you have to earn it yourself, that there are right things and there are wrong things, and you have to have that moral compass in you, that if you want success badly enough, then you will determine the ways in which to get to it, and the longer road is usually the better road, and it's easier said than done. Other than that, I have my father and I also had a fairly relaxed relationship, though my paternal house, being a feudal family, had a somewhat distanced relationship. Like the way my son deals with my father, I couldn't imagine in a dream me talking to my paternal grandfather like that. Having said that, I think it's for the better, because then the circumstances, the flux around them, the pace of change is so much that if you are friends with them, you are actually able to help them better, I feel. There are many things about his life which I don't fully appreciate, like his love of gadgets and technology and all of that. I'm not very conversant with it at the same level. There are some things he thinks I waste time on, like why would you want to read news about Vietnam? So I think we have lots of friendly conversations, and he can get away with bullying me quite often. Uh, so I think we help each other now in many ways. His more recent area of research that helps me is male pattern baldness. So we are good friends, and I like to keep it that way. Your question
Good.
was how do we inculcate values? I think it is by example.
Yeah.
There are conversations that need to be had about, because he's growing up in a school environment where the children are really from very wealthy business families.
Right.
Value systems they all have, but nevertheless their circumstances. And so when you live in Bombay and you also go around and socialize, etc., in your mind you can be mistaken to think that you're at a level, which is not to say he's not, but that he has to pursue excellence and earn success. That is something that has been on my radar as a constant and recurring theme for our conversations. But otherwise, I think he's a very mature boy. He knows much more about the world. He's much more focused and driven, and that's also a generational quality, I think.
Yeah.
They know what they want and they know how to go about it. The only difference between him and me is that, and this is again a generational change, is that he couldn't be bothered about reading fat books. He likes to get his information like this through audio visual means, and very often I think Google or Chat GPT is a better source than Dad. So other than that, I think we are pretty much carrying forward the.
Right. You spoke about value systems, you spoke about things that you encourage in your child, but at the same time, as a leader, you're also encouraging your team to be driven, to be motivated. How is it that you continue to give them the right kind of pep talk and make sure that they are focused?
Look, firstly, in relative terms, I have a small team, in the sense that the total population in terms of the managerial strength in Tata's, the brand and marketing team at Tata Motors CV is relatively more insulated and a more centrally driven team. So
Right.
it helps me because everybody in my team is more or less sitting around me. We have a more regular cadence of interactions. I don't have to depend on a very structured meeting led format for me to know the problems as they surface up. But times have been different. In earlier stints, I have had very distant relationships. I have led global teams, and so on and so forth. I think the fundamental principle is, you know, do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. That is the first principle. And populism doesn't pay in corporate life, because the commercial world is a world of results. So they have to know that I may have great affection for them and I will always have their back, but the results are objectively what the results are. So I think fairness is important. And uh, our chairman, Mr. J.R.D. Tata, had once said, to be a leader, you have to lead your people with affection. So I think, and the affection is not about mollycoddling them. It is about when the chips are down. When somebody has a personal tragedy, when somebody is
Right.
unable to cope up with work, when the stretch is getting difficult, when there are interpersonal issues in the team, that is the time I think that you have to demonstrate uh, equality of attitude and conduct, and secondly fairness. And if they see that you are chasing the rewards and the spotlight on what they have delivered to you, you lose the currency of respect very fast. So the other part of fairness is what is due to them, you should give to them first and put them in the spotlight, and make sure that they see that they will advance by delivering to the team. The other problem is in, and I've written about it in terms of articles, etc. In marketing, it's very easy to be subject to two diseases. One is I call expertitis, and the other is departmentalitis. Expertitis is, oh, this is not my problem, this is the media team's problem, this is not the media team's problem, this is the digital team's problem, and so on. And the other is this departmentalitis, saying that sales can tell us what they want and then we will do it, or product should make a vehicle and then I will decide what to do about it in terms of marketing. And the world doesn't operate like that, right? The end customer doesn't care whether you had a good relationship with
Right.
product planning or a bad relationship with sales. They are just in their consumer journey. So the more we think in terms of consumer journeys, the more we are in their shoes, the better the outcomes will be. So one of the things that is important from a team fostering, nurturing point of view is make them have each other's back. There should be a sense of tribalism, sure, but not turf. And the two are easy to confuse one with the other. That you are not any special because you are in brand or marketing, or somebody else is not being unreasonable because they only want sales or leads, but how to make that conversation a fruitful conversation, how to reach out, how to negotiate better, how to convince people of your point of view. And lastly, in brand and marketing, the more groovy part of the whole show is advertising and making
Right.
content, etc., and that's relatively easier to do. So it's very simple to take that shortcut and say, oh, you have a problem, I'll make a film, we'll run a campaign, without really spending time with the customer, understanding the ground level constraints, letting it percolate fully into your understanding before withdrawing and then getting to solutioning. So this deep work kind of phenomenon, how do people assess the reality, how do they have meaningful conversations that validates that reality, how do they marry that with data and consumer insights, and then move to campaign framing. This is something that I try and tutor my people all the time. And the last thing is just reminding them, in this company we are blessed to be forwarding the Tata ideal, right? The Tata mission is a mission of nation building. We are not alone in this for profits. Of course, those are important for us to be able to do good.
Right.
But whenever the nation needs us, whenever there is a community angle, whenever it's about the right conduct, ethical behavior, it is synonymous with Tata in the imagination of people across. And we've just recently done a lot of work on our repositioning, and we discover even amongst the youngest consumers, it's really a blessing for us to have that equity to lean back on. And therefore, once you are convinced of the mission, then you can, put up with any how and why, right? If your mission is dodgy, if you're not convinced about the outcomes, then you start earning brownie points, and mine is better than his. If you're all headed in the same direction, I used to have a HR coach back in Unilever who used to say, in battle, normal human instinct is, if there is gunfire, run away from gunfire, right? But in mission critical teams in battle, the army man runs towards where there is gunfire, right? So
Right.
that is, and you take a bullet, you have the very dire consequences, but you do it because there is pride of regiment, there is pride of country, there is pride of self, and then there is an outcome that you are chasing. We are not army men, but we are also doing a very important job for the economy, for the country. And that's the kind of spirit that I like to, inculcate in the team. And lastly, party.
Right.
Very important, because monotony can get to you, fatigue can get to you. And it's not only about the one offsite that we may have in the year, it's just to go away with people. If you're in a meeting, at the end of the day, just take those two people who you are with for a bite or a drink, it just helps them, tell you things which they would not tell you in an office circumstance.
Right.
So this is the way I think I've gone about working with my team, and definitely I would say they matter a whole lot to me because everything I do is thanks to the team.
Well, thank you for sharing those thoughts. I think that would make a lot of our viewers be a part of your team. So, not passing the buck, really working on finding a solution, working whether with broader teams or departments, but really being more empathetic. And, like you said, forming that beautiful relationship where, yes, you have a personal angle to things, but that also continues to make sure that the team is driven. Thank you so very much for sharing your thoughts both as a leader and as a person. You're someone who has given our viewers a chance to learn a lot. Thank you. It's been a pleasure listening in.
Most welcome. Thank you, Isha.